Good afternoon, everyone. It's Gary at Soccer Pro, and today I have the pleasure of having Ryan Hodgson with me. He is the Director of Talent Identification, and we're going to be talking about how you can get a spot overseas to study and play at the collegiate level. So, welcome, Ryan. Glad to have you here with us. How about if you can tell everyone a little bit about yourself and more about what you're doing with this program, because it sounds exciting.
Yeah, no, I appreciate the invite, Gary, and it's a pleasure to be here with you. As you said, I'm the Director of Talent Identification with Challenger Sports Study and Play Abroad. We have an opportunity to send high school graduates to the UK to study for the bachelor's or master's degree while playing in a full year-round football academy with professional football clubs, such as Everton Football Club is one of our primary partners.
So when you talk about taking these kids overseas to study, this is really almost like an alternate to the college programs that they might play in here. So instead of taking the path of high school and then playing college ball in the US, they would finish their high school career and then go over into your program.
Yeah, it's a good question. So a lot of the parents, a lot of the students that we talk to, they've got college soccer ingrained in their mind, right? So it's the natural transition that you graduate high school and then we go to college. Well, in England, we needed three things that would replicate but be far greater in development than the traditional college soccer scene in the US, right? So we needed a university partner, we needed a league for the students to play in, and then we needed teams for the players to play on. And one of the first things that I say to any recruit is, this is not college soccer, right? This is academy soccer. So when I say the three things, let's focus on our Liverpool destination in the UK. The university partner is Liverpool John Moores University, and it's a 3-year bachelor's degree. If you meet the initial entry criteria, which is not difficult, you walk straight into a 3-year bachelor's degree versus the 5-year bachelor's degree in the US. And I say 5 years because 19% of students graduate inside of 4 years at a traditional non-flagship university, right? A state university that doesn't have a lot of doctorate programs. So only 1 in 5 make it in 4 years. 33% graduate inside of 4 years at a flagship university. State university that has a lot of doctorate programs, not private, still public. So that might be your University of Colorado, for example, which is a big Division I university in multiple sports, but only 1 in 3 are graduating inside of 4 years at those universities. So when we send the students to the UK and we're telling them you will graduate inside of 3 years at 70% less of tuition than it would cost in the US. So from an academic standpoint,
can I ask you a question on that before you go on? When you're talking about 3 years, you're not taking fewer academic credits. You're going year round, right?
You are. Yeah. You're going, so they'll enroll. It's actually shorter as well, Gary. University in England starts traditionally 3rd week in September and then finishes the same time in the US, maybe the end of May, middle of May to the end of May, right? One of the main reasons is the students are not required to take general ed classes, right? That they take it, so that you burn up 2 years of your degree in the US. You've got a lot of high schools across the US that do these running start programs,
right? Where
the kids will walk out of high school with maybe their associate's degree. Then they're walking into 2 or 3 years for the bachelor's degree. If they're on track for that, then by all means, it's the equivalent of studying in England versus the UK if you have satisfied the general ed requirements. So we're talking 3-year bachelor's degree and 1-year master's degree.
Mm-hmm.
So within a 4-year period, you're walking out with your master's degree. There is what they call a sandwich year in the UK, which is a work placement year. So after your bachelor's degree, the university will help find you a year's work placement. And this is different, Gary, because in America, we have what we call internships, right? Which is free labor.
Yep.
So companies will bring in interns and not pay them, but will give them work experience. Well, in the UK, these are paid work placements. So you do your sandwich year between your bachelor's and master's, and then a 1-year master's, and you get an 18-year-old student in the UK. You're walking out with your bachelor's degree by the time you're 21, and you're entering the workforce. or you stay an additional year and you do your masters as well. So that's the educational element with Liverpool John Moores University, which are a very, very good university in the UK. I think they're ranked 5 globally in sports.
Wow.
Right, they're members of every engineering organization throughout the world. They have international business management. It's important to understand, I get asked this question a lot as well, Gary, is, are degrees internationally transferable? Well, a Bachelor of Science or a Master of Science or Bachelor of Arts, BSc, BSA, they're all internationally recognized.
Right.
There's articles being written that the US employers favor a degree from the UK versus a lot of the universities in the US, for the simple reason that it's more independent study in the UK. You're not micromanaged throughout your degree in the US, where you pick up Business 101, for example, and you have 10 pop-up quizzes throughout the course of the semester, and that's worth 100 points, right? In England, it's independent study-led, so you're given your coursework, you're given the assignments, you hand it in, you go to class, you go to the lectures, you pass year 1, then you go to year 2. So you take the exams at the end of year 1. If you pass your exams, you go to year 2. And you don't have the luxury, Gary, in England of choosing your timetable. Whereas in the US, you'll go on the registration system in the university, and you'll say, a student athlete, for example, the college coaches, and I've been a college coach, and I will say to my students, don't register for any classes between 8 till 10 a.m. And we trained 8 till 10 a.m. in my college because I knew some of these kids wouldn't register for classes before 10 a.m. anyway, and they're sleeping in.
Right.
They're not getting up. My GPA is very high because it's like, if I work out in the morning at 6 o'clock, I'm ready for the day.
Yes.
Right. I've accomplished something really good. It's the same concept with the student athletes. Train at 8 o'clock till 10, 10:30, 10:45, you're in classes for the rest of the day. And they've got the rest of the day to themselves. We might have a gym session in the afternoon. So with the football element in England, right, which is, let's call a spade, is why students want to talk to us, is, wow, you mean, Ryan, I can go to England, graduate with a bachelor's degree in 3 years. Socially, Liverpool's a great city. Unfortunately, it's got Liverpool and Everton, 2 football clubs that I don't like, but still, so yeah, I know.
Yeah.
Socially, it's a good spot for them. The football is very different than the US. For one major reason is there's no red tape. There's no bureaucracy with coaches can only train you X amount of times during the week in the off season. The season in the UK goes from pre-season will happen mid-August, and the season will end at the end of May. So it's a full European-length football season.
Right. 1
game a week, right? With Everton Football Club. And it's important to understand that when I say it's Everton Football Club, it's not Everton Football Club where the guys are going to go sign a pro contract, right?
Yes.
So the National Football League, which is one of the 3 elements that I said that I needed, the National Football Youth League is the highest level of football in England outside of the professional academy system. And it's designed as an insurance policy to capture the late developers.
Sure.
Right. So we all know there's a famous guy out there called Jamie Vardy that was released by Sheffield Wednesday at 16 years old. He didn't turn into a pro until he was 24. But imagine back then if there was a system in place for these kids. Because, we're looking at 17-year-old, 18-year-old kids in America that haven't finished physically developing.
Right. Especially on the boys' side.
100% go. And they will go into pre-season and they're playing against them with 22, 23-year-old seniors. Right? In England, when the kids within the academies are released at 16 or 18, there's 2 rounds of cuts. U16, if you sign as a U16, you go to a 2-year apprenticeship or a scholarship. And then the final round of cuts is traditionally at U18. So at U18, the athletes, the football players are given an option. They can say, we wish you the very best of luck. We're no longer signing you. We're not going to sign you as a pro. So you're free to go wherever you want. Or you can move laterally across to the other side of the academy with Everton in what they call Everton Football College, also known within some circles as a shadow squad. It's a replica to the academy,
Okay.
The only difference is Everton Football College exists as an insurance policy to capture the late developers, but also with an educational format. So the difference is these guys that we work with are not paid and not pros, but they go to college.
Mm-hmm.
So the US students will come over to England and play with Everton Football College in the National Football Youth League, and their fixture lists, right, will be against Man City, Manchester City, will be against Liverpool, will be against Barnsley Football Club, Sunderland, Newcastle.
Wow.
If they're drawn in the cup competition, they could be playing Chelsea, Tottenham, West Ham, Fulham, Watford. I mean, that fixture list in itself is mouth-watering, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
And then it's a full European-linked season. So when the guys in America are done at the end of October, if they don't, the first week in November is when Division One, the postseason will start. If you go 1-0 or 0-1, your season's done. You can't play until the spring. Our guys are just ramping up.
Right. And that's really a huge thing. If you look at some of these weird rules that we have with the high schools, with the colleges, and they restrict them from training, it just doesn't make any sense. I mean, if you're looking at playing pro, how can you just say, well, we'll just train for 4 months and then hope that it somehow translates into, a full year of development so that we can take it to the next level? It just never made any sense to me.
Well, you bring up a good point. You look at the Division One, well, just college soccer in general is traditionally 20-game season before the playoffs, right?
Right.
You play Friday, Sunday. Let's just say Friday, Sunday, right? Friday, and we'll start at Friday. So Friday's games are really good because you've had the whole week to prepare for Friday's game.
Yep.
Traditionally, a 7:00 game on a Friday evening because the opposition has to get there. Sometimes they'll have to be in class on Friday, travel to the location to play evening game on Friday underneath the lights. Saturday is recovery from Friday's game.
Mm-hmm.
Sunday's game, traditionally early afternoon. Why? Because the opposition has to get back to their location so the kids can go to school on Monday. So your second game on a Sunday is less than 36 hours of Friday's game. And again, I'm not a mathematician, I'm not a sports scientist, but I know my body in that environment, if I'm an 18-year-old kid, 19-year-old kid, cannot physically recover outside of 72 hours. I mean, you look at the Premier League right now, these guys are going every 3 days, right? But back to the collegiate game, if Saturday's recovery / prepping for the game on Sunday, because if you're playing against a different system on Sunday, a different style, right? You've got to be able to prepare for a high press, low press, whatever.
Right.
Then the NCAA has to give you a day off, right? The student athletes have to have a mandatory day off during the week. Monday, typically your day off. Some colleges might do it differently, but I know I would do it that right. If I'm playing Friday and Monday, if I'm playing, I might play Wednesday as well, for example, and Thursday is my day off. So Monday is your recovery day / no contact with the coach. Tuesday, you're back on the pitch with the team. That's recovery because it's your first practice since 2 games on the weekend. Wednesday is your only day to literally go 100% to force, your athletes into certain examples or certain sort of scenarios of what you might face with a game on Friday. Thursday is the day before Friday. That's more walkthrough, tactical walkthrough, shadow play, whatever terminology you might use. So you tell me, Gary, over the course of 10 weeks, if I'm playing 2 games a week, where am I developing these athletes? And let me just be clear, because people might watch this and think, Ryan is absolutely destroying college soccer. I have a lot of friends that are college coaches who are very, very good coaches, and they have handcuffs on them.
Yes.
Not because they choose the rules, they have to follow the rules. It's the red tape, bureaucracy, people in suits that, again, not to get on my soapbox, but would make for good viewing, right? That people in suits that only care about the top power 2 sports or 3 sports and really don't care about everything else. And soccer, unfortunately, is one of those sports that is looked at as a non-revenue generating sport. I don't think there's one soccer program in the US, college soccer program in the US, that is a revenue generating sport.
No.
Right.
Yeah. If you just look at studies that have done, let's say in skiing, for example, you take the recreational skier and they go out on a ski vacation. The first day they ski, second day they ski, third day they get injured. I mean, that's the highest day for injuries. The body needs to recover. And it's pretty much should be common sense that if you play 2 games in a relatively short period in a week versus 1 game a week over a duration of a year or 9 months versus jammed into 4, you're going to get better quality play and fewer injuries.
Yeah. Well, and there's this 21st century model that's being pushed by the top 10 schools in the US, and I fully support it. If the NCAA would listen to them and understand that it will reduce injuries, the students will have more time to study, and it goes over 2 semesters.
Mm-hmm.
Right? I mean, that's not rocket science, is it? Now, you mean all of a sudden you mean that I can play 1 game a week and truly develop my athletes to play that 1 game and create a hunger and an appetite for the following week's game?
Right.
So back to England, if you because the season is August to May, if you get a soft tissue injury, which is arguably the most common types of injuries in sports, pull a hamstring, you're out for 6 weeks. Pull a calf, you're out for 3 or 4 weeks, right? A groin, whatever. Well, in England, in the US, if you pull a hamstring, you're out for 6 weeks. That's 6. If you're lucky enough to pull it in preseason, then you've got the rest of it, right? But if you pull it mid-season,
that's it.
Gary, your season is done, but not only is your season done, your year of eligibility is done.
Yes.
You lose a year of eligibility. Why? Why don't we have 2 different age groups in college soccer? Let's have freshman, sophomore, and if the freshmen and sophomores are good enough, they'll participate in the older age, right? So in England,
sure,
Everton, with the National Football Youth League, there is a U19 league and a U23 league. So for the students that are not physically finished developed at 19 or 18, they can still play with the U19s. After their first or second year of university, they'll go to U23. So it's an even playing ground physically. Back to the injury model. If I pull a hamstring and I'm out for 6 weeks in England, if I pull it in September, so I'm out September, I'm out October, so there's 8 weeks. Then you slowly introduce me back into competition. But then I've only missed 8 weeks, but I've got until May to catch up, right? So again, you put the 2 models side by side. Again, not to bash college soccer coaches, but they've got handcuffs on them. They would love to coach more. I don't know one college coach in the country that would say, I'm done after 10 weeks. I'm burnt out. I don't want to coach anymore until April. They're craving to coach. Mm-hmm. They're craving to develop, but their hands are tied, unfortunately.
And if you look at it from a percentage standpoint, that 6-week injury as a percentage of college ball is massive versus spreading it out. It's the same injury, but the percentages of your season are completely different. So Ryan, you played in college ball, didn't you?
I did, yeah. Unfortunately, which So
you've seen the difference between an incoming freshman's physique and an outgoing senior's physique, and it's a massive difference.
Well, yeah. I mean, I'm 42 years old and I still haven't started shaving, but you've got some of these seniors that I walked in as a 20-year-old freshman from England, where I had a team in Charlotte, North Carolina that I was training with, that I had an offer to play for them.
Sure.
But I wanted to go the scholarship route. I had this perception that college soccer in America was fantastic, which, don't get me wrong, socially, I've got some very good friends all over the world, Europe, South America, Africa, right, the US, that these are lifelong fraternity brothers, if you will.
Yes.
But what I needed is, when I say that, and for full transparency, I'm the failed college soccer player. I was a good player, came over wasn't good enough to make it in England, and admittedly I wasn't.
Sure.
But I was good enough to make it over here back in the early 2000s, right? 99/2000 is when I had the option to go to Charlotte, North Carolina, or play collegiately. So when I wasn't a good student, Gary. I finished my degree and I took 87 credits in 1 year to finish my degree as an adult.
Wow.
as an adult with a baby and a full-time job and a marriage.
That's
I know,
huge.
right? It is. It is. But I was the failed college soccer player where I needed a mentor, right? Especially in the off season. When the season is done and you can't have contact with your players, right? There's going to be the dropout rate. There's going to be guys like me that, well, if nobody's watching me, I'm not going to go to class. I don't want to go to class. I wasn't a good student at the time. And again, admittedly, I wasn't a good student. So when I had my scholarship taken away from me, right, it wasn't a mutual decision. It was my scholarship was taken away from me because I made choices that were against the policies of the program, which again, in hindsight, right, it was right. So, but I needed a mentor. I needed my hand held at that time. A lot of guys, a lot of females, a lot of males, they don't have that luxury. Whereas in England, no train, no play. Don't go to class, you don't train, you don't train, you don't play.
Right. Yeah. And in America, so you have to stay with the program.
Of course you do. Of course you do. Yeah. So, when I look back at my experience, which is the driving passion behind what I do for a living, when I talk to every student, I ensure that socially they're making the right decision. Which brings us to...
Can we go back to that topic just for 1 second, Ryan, though? I think it's important to emphasize how dramatic that motivation is. When you aren't going to get to practice or you're not going to get to play, if you don't go to that class or perform in that class or do whatever it is necessary to get back out on the field, you somehow find a way to do it. You might have a cold, you might be a little under the weather, you might just not feel like it. But when you start thinking, it's like, okay, if I don't do it though, I'm not going to be able to play. And if I don't get to play, I'm not going to do what I love. So, all right, suck it up, get to class, do the work, make sure it happens. It's really a strong motivator.
Well, it is. And I think, one of the valuable benefits of, the governing bodies, the NAIAs, the junior colleges, the NCAAs, is they require minimum GPAs to participate, right? Or you need to be a full-time student to participate. That's one of the very few good things that comes out of those, But for example, you might have the next Lionel Messi. And Lionel Messi is going to struggle in school.
Right.
Lionel Messi can only hold a 1.9 GPA. Well, Lionel Messi is ineligible to play college soccer. We need a system in place for those kids to develop as well.
Right.
And there currently isn't. It's called the redshirt system. It's called internationals coming over and taking ESL classes that are not eligible to play collegiately. And if you put English as a second language, ESL classes, a lot of junior colleges will bring internationals over that take ESL, but ESL classes don't transfer to 4-year schools. So the college coaches in junior college, they've got a conundrum. Do they bring an international over to the US and sit him or her on the bench for 1 year to take ESL? Then they still have 2 years of eligibility the following. But they're not going to do that. So they're going to put the kids in the soccer program, which burns a year of eligibility, which takes a year of ESL classes. So junior college, you only have 2 years of eligibility. So if you take a year's worth of ESL, play, the following year, you take a year's worth of college classes, but you're still not a qualifier to Division 1. So therefore, you have to stay at the junior college for 1 more year to take that second year of college classes in order to be a qualifier to go to Division 1.
Right.
Or you sacrifice the Division 1 path and go NAIA, which have, a lot lax rules than the NCAA. So, there's a lot of moving parts, to the collegiate game over here. And when I look at, when we put them side by side in England.
Right. We've got off, I don't want to say on a bit of a tangent, but we've been talking a lot about college ball, which is good because it kind of sets the stage for what you're doing. I'd like to hear a little bit more about how people can get involved in your program and how they can go the pathway of high school into going over to Europe and playing in this more academy style. What would be the pathway for people to do that?
Yeah, so we've got scouts all over the US, right? So that I oversee. and the scouts refer players to us from certain tournaments. We're not just looking for the elite players. And again, one of the other valuable things, Gary, about England is Everton Football College have multiple levels of abilities within their football program, right? So they might have 140 players at U19 to U23. So I could send a kid from an MLS academy that doesn't want to go to college, because if he goes to college and plays 10 weeks out of the year, his development's going to stagnate. He's going to stand still. He'd arguably regress. In England, I could send that same kid to England and play 10 months out of the year and play on their top team. Or I could take a player, Gary, that will never get recruited in America, that when he graduates high school, his career is over. But he loves the game.
Right.
But he's never going to play collegiately. So he can now go to England and play within Everton's 5th or 6th team, the U19, and still play, albeit more socially, would still get a bachelor's degree, still represent Everton Football College / Everton Football Club, right? Live in England and have the time of their lives. So we can recruit multiple levels of play. So a long answer to your short question is, if you are a competitive soccer player that aspires to play at the next level, that has got aspirations of going pro, or simply wants to play at the next level, but they'll never play in America, we can take them.
And where would they contact you? I mean, do you have a website that people can reach you?
So
about your program?
Yeah, so studyandplayabroad.com.
All right, I'll post that into the video as well, so people can get that down. But just for the folks that are listening on a podcast, it's studyandplayabroad.com.
Correct. Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
And like you said, it's for a lot of different levels and a lot of different folks. And for someone like me, I've done a lot of international travel, and there's a lot of value for getting out of your home base. And let's face it, when you go from Illinois to Colorado, or Colorado to New York or Florida, it's pretty much the same. I mean, you get the same people for the most part, the same type of atmosphere, the same type of culture. And getting out of your home culture, getting abroad, getting some international travel can not only have huge benefits educationally for soccer, but from a professional standpoint, you've got that wider base of knowledge that businesses like to see. They want to see that you have international knowledge because they're doing business around the globe. So you have to understand more than the Midwest or the South or the West Coast. You have to understand the globe. So there's a lot of benefit to that. And I'm assuming, I'm going to make an assumption here, but you can correct me. I'm assuming that there's a lot of international players coming from other countries, not just the UK, that are coming into this program.
Through us, traditionally just North America. So we were Canadian, and
into the program in general, not just through you folks. So if someone comes here, they go through you, they get over into this program. So one, they'll be studying internationally, they'll be playing internationally, they'll also be exposed to a lot more international players from multiple different countries.
Yes, yeah, you're correct. So we have, with us, we have, I've got my first South African recruit coming in this fall to England. We've spoke to Egypt, we spoke to Morocco, but within the actual academy system in England, you're absolutely right. Maltese students are coming in. I mean, all over Europe, all over the world are coming in as long as they can get a student visa.
Sure.
Right. To go to university, which is not difficult to get. As you need a passport, and some countries you'll need to prove you've got the enough funds to fund your tuition and spending money and living costs in England. Same as in the US, but from the US, it's not as it's not. It's So English speaking country, affluent country, if you will, going to another, first world country, not affluent, I said first world country, going to a
in some of these countries, they make sure that you have enough assets at home that you'll want to come back for them. So that is part of it. Exactly. And coming from the US, it's pretty much, they know that you're not going to just abandon everything. So moving on to this program's cost, okay, you talked about going to the university system here in the US and going into your program at about 70% lower, right? 70% lower cost going through the traditional D1 type of program here in the US. Can you expand on that just a little bit more?
Yeah, so we'll do an apples with apples comparison. I just saw a post on social media the other day that a Division I program, their tuition costs are $74,000 a year. Right, these private schools are $74,000 a year. Well,
and public,
sorry.
I was saying, and some public schools too. The higher end public schools are banging that level of tuition cost as well. It's incredible.
Yeah. So if I get these statistics right off the top of my head, a 4-year, and keep in mind 19% and 33% graduate inside of 4 years, right?
Yep.
A 4-year public degree in the US, in-state public degree is $97,000, right? A 4-year out-of-state public degree is $153,000 for 4 years. A 4-year private degree is $197,000 over 4 years. Private universities are built to get you in and out in 4 years.
Yeah.
Right? They're built for that. The public universities are not. And then that's if you don't change your major. That's if you lack of financial planning, lack of, transferring, student athletes hurt, socially it's not a right fit, transferring out. So the cost of the program in England from a university standpoint is traditionally about £13,000 a year for your tuition, which is $16,000, $17,000, depending what the exchange rate is.
Yeah.
Throw in, and again, keep in mind it's a 3-year degree. And then throw in housing, which housing and food is traditionally about another £8,000, right? So
pretty standard.
$12,000. Yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty.
So
standard.
you're about $28,000 for tuition and room and board in England per year. That's everything, and then that's a 3-year bachelor's degree. So 28 times 3 years, 72,000 for a 3-year bachelor's degree.
Yep.
A 4-year bachelor's degree in England and America at a non-flagship in-state university is $97,000. So I'm already $19,000 up, and 1 year, If I enter the workforce and get a job base pay of $40,000 a year, I've made 40 grand in my first year, while my counterparts in America are still wrapping up their 4th year of college. But wait, 80% of them will likely go to 5 years, so I'm 2 years ahead of the game.
Yeah.
And then you throw in your master's degree. So about $28,000 a year for tuition, room and board, and food. And those are entertainment expenses as well. The football academy, which is separate to the university, because I started this interview with describing that we are not university soccer in England, we are academy football.
Sure.
Right?
Yep.
So it's a separate entity. The football academy is about $12,000 a year, which includes everything. Transportation, buses, coach, overnight travel if need be, facility staffing, pretty much everything. So total, you're looking at about $40,000 a year. And that's on the high end. But the students don't have to take the football academy. We will still help them get into the university in England.
Right. And so if you really start to think about it, if you take the 3-year program, take a sandwich year, which we call an internship, but sandwich year where you get paid, right? That's the key part, is you get paid. Right. And then a 1-year master's program, you've got 5 years of your life invested. You're coming out with a year of salary plus an experience, right? Salary plus experience. And you're coming out with a master's degree. And I can tell you firsthand that I took a sandwich half year. I took a paid internship between my junior and senior year of college at a research center. And one of the other benefits you come back with is just how much better of a student you become. So you go through I did 3 years, then a half year, I came back, and then it was like, my God, this is so easy. I should have done this sooner, because now comparing working every day and doing all that stuff, and then coming back to the university, it was like, this is nothing. Yeah. So now you get that year, you come back, you get your master's. It's going to be easier to get your master's. I can guarantee that, just because of that life experience you have. And now, again, 5 years later, you're out with your master's with an international business type degree. It's a powerful formula right there. It's really a great program.
Yeah, well, and not just, some of the students, the degree programs that we have students in right now, biology, mechanical engineering. We have a few kids in mechanical engineering, media and productions, international business management, entrepreneurship, sports coaching, sports and exercise science for the physical therapists, athletic trainers, criminology, law. The list just goes on. That the students can study pretty much anything and everything.
Mm-hmm. So just to wrap this up, you can go get a 3-year degree. You can get a 5-year or a 4-year degree with a master's. You can do 5 years with a sandwich year. You're looking at about 70% lower cost. You get a longer duration to play soccer. So if you want to take it to the next level or just want to stick with it longer than your high school career and find a great way to go to college and get overseas international experience, it's a pretty strong formula you have going there. So Ryan, one more time, how do people get a hold of you to get more information about this program?
Yeah, studyandplayabroad.com.
All right, studyandplayabroad.com. And again, I'll post it in the video, but I just want to make sure we repeat that for the people listening to this on a podcast. So studyandplayabroad.com. Name is Ryan Hodgson. Ryan, I really do appreciate you coming out today and spending time with us to explain this program. I personally didn't know about it. I'm sure there's a lot of other people that did not know about this, but this is a fantastic option for a lot of reasons.
Yeah, no, I appreciate the invite, Gary. I absolutely do. And, we're only 3 years into this program, and it's one of the best kept secrets in the US, and will only grow and provide better opportunities for these kids.
Yeah, fantastic. All right. Well, thanks again, Ryan. I appreciate it. And you have a great week. Looking forward to coming back in the future and taking maybe a deeper dive into these topics on some of the success stories from these students.
Yeah, fantastic. Look forward to it. Thanks, Gary.